welcome back to Don't Open That Door. Come along with our triumvirate of terror as we descend into darkness, hurtle into horror, and plunge into peril. If you've ever used your internet knowledge to try and win over a hottie only to die in the process, you're in the right place. I'm Justin, and very specific people can sit on me.
I'm Nico, and I've never babysat, but I have pet sat.
Well, I'm Dan, and I definitely had a crush on my babysitter.
And we're here today to review The Night Sitter. This one was directed by Rocco and Abiel Bruhn, starring Elise DeFore as Amber, Jack Champion as Kevin, Jermaine Rivers as Rod, J. Benedict Larmore as Marvin, Amber Newcomb as Lindsay, and Bailey Campbell as Ronnie. So, we open with Amber, a babysitter responding to an ad, which by the way, looks like Craigslist, to watch over Kevin, a young preteen who has a father that's obsessed with the occult. He's kind of a paranormal investigator. Kevin's father tells him he'll be back by midnight, then leaves to go on a date. And his date also leaves her son, Ronnie, for Amber to watch over. Things go as you would expect until we find out that Amber's not just a babysitter, she's actually here to rob the place. And transferring over now to someone who I think has robbed the hearts of all our listeners, Nico. What happens next?
Goddamn right. So Kevin finds out and is actually surprisingly chill about the whole getting robbed thing. He does tell Amber that he has a secret as well, though, and that his dreams are haunted by 3 terrifying beings. It's just 3-6 Mafia. God, no. Could you imagine? Amber says that she'll go hang out with him in his bedroom while he and Ronnie fall asleep, just to kind of keep them both safe, you know? Amber actually ends up falling asleep herself, and then she sees the beings, but when she wakes up, she says there's nothing to fear, and leaves Kevin and Ronnie alone in the room.
Right. And I think she's going to call her gang, next. And when I need to call, my gang to come
Squad.
in, it's always Dan. So Dan, what happens next?
Well, unfortunately, Amber's recently ex-boyfriend, Marvin, shows up, and she clearly didn't really want him there, but he's there, along with her partner in crime, Rod, and his girlfriend. They get busy robbing the place, much to Marvin's protestations. While this is all going down, Kevin and Ronnie get into Kevin's father's office, which is filled with arcane and occult artifacts. Kevin accidentally cuts himself and gets some blood on an ancient tome, which unleashes the trio of witches known as the 3 Mothers. Whoopsies.
I literally had the old school Mortal Kombat whoopsies sound in my head when he cut his finger.
Bro, I had the fucking Witcher soundtrack. This reminded me of the first little arc where there's those 3 little hags and shit and the little mire and whatever. Yeah, so there was just, while watching this, there was a choir of supposedly bulk women going to hey!
Wow.
I'm not wrong!
Shout outs to Delaraine, who is the group behind that. But the witches kidnap Ronnie, and Kevin goes looking for him. Rod and his girlfriend slip away for some sexy moments, but then she gets possessed by a witch, which in my opinion is good, but I guess in general that's probably not good. Yeah. Kevin eventually finds Ronnie, and he sees the witches slit Ronnie's throat and kill him. That's probably not good as well. He freaks out and tells Amber and company, and they start to freak out. To complicate matters, Vincent, the Redditor who lives across the street, shows up at the door. Now, Amber and Kevin go hang out with him for a second, and Vincent confirms that what Kevin is seeing is actually real, and the 3 mothers are the beings that he's been seeing, and they're 3 notorious child-killing witches. Oh no! But when I run into a witch, I tend to call Nico. So Nico, what's really going on here?
So they head back to Kevin's house where Rod's possessed girlfriend attacks, but Vincent uses what he learned in the book to cast a 3rd level counterspell and repel the witches.
Oh, I see.
The witches reply with a counter spell, making it so that the doors in the house can only open from the outside, trapping everyone in. Vincent tries to go out through the garage, but he's killed. Amber and Rod then brawl with Rod's possessed girlfriend and kill her, and the witches do grab Kevin and finally take him down to the basement for a ritual.
Well, we go now to the master of rituals in the basement. Dan, how's this close out?
Well, now Kevin's dad decides to show up from his date, and, well, he accidentally kills Rod. Whoopsies. And while his date is also killed, he is ready for combat. As it turns out, he was kind of hoping something like this would happen, but he doesn't want anything bad to happen to Kevin, so he grabs the witch-killing gear and heads with Amber down to the basement. He says that if they burn the old tome, then the witches should also perish. Except, well, that doesn't work, and the witches kill him. Amber manages to incapacitate the witches, and using the counter charm she learned from Vincent, R.I.P. to the Redditor, she grabs Kevin, and they escape from the house and drive away. The movie ends with the scene of a nosy neighbor opening the door to the house and unleashing the fury of the witches. The end.
Honestly, fuck him, because how are you going to open someone else's house for them?
Yeah, fuck him.
Back in my day, a neighbor could come to your house and ask for some sugar.
Yeah, there's a difference between sugar and la fucking bruja, mate.
I take it. But I want to know how this movie looks. Nico, I know you are predisposed to liking films that have colors. Did you like the colors in this movie?
Yeah, I was a big fan of it. They were just so vibrant, and every scene was just bathed in a very colorful swath of... It's almost like when you have movies like this, it almost feels like the lighting itself is a character sometimes, and I definitely felt that with this one. I was just a big fan of the bombastic colors. It was fun.
I thought they showed bombastically as well. Dan, as far as the visuals go, how'd you like them?
I really dug them. I believe this film is an indie film, and it doesn't really look like it to me. Like, I wouldn't quite say it looks like big budget Hollywood, but it doesn't look like a indie film. It looks great. Colors,
Very
like
well
Nico said,
produced.
are awesome. I liked the witches. I thought looked really cool. It just looks great, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I personally, we've seen Suspiria for the pod, and sometimes those colors play a big role. And I don't know, I just like seeing colors. I'm a pretty simple guy. I like colors, and they were there.
Big shiny thing, brain go burr.
It did.
They do
And
color.
also, like the cinematography was pretty decent too. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like other independent adventures we've seen where sometimes the camera work is not quite, up to scratch. I thought this was pretty good. Now, taking it to the sound level, Dan, you and I have at length discussed our love of synth. Did this scratch the synth for you?
I think my synth was scratched, yes.
Okay.
I thought the synth soundtrack was pretty awesome. Really cool, just like arpeggiated motifs and things were pretty sick. I thought overall it sounded great. The dialogue sounded great. There were a couple times I noticed that the dialogue didn't always line up with what the characters were mouthing.
I noticed that too.
So that was but it was overall it was still pretty good. Still pretty good.
Right. Now, Nico, what are your thoughts on the sound?
I want to echo everything Dan said, but with particular attention towards the parts where the audio and video weren't matching up, but for a good reason. I saw this yesterday, and I'm assuming you two saw it today, but regardless, like, this movie looks and sounds so good that I genuinely forgot about that, and it takes a lot for me to forget about things where literally what you're seeing and hearing don't line up, so... maybe that's a little bit of a hyperbole of how much I like this. I'm not sure, but like it looks and sounds really fucking good.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you there. Although, Nico, you're wrong. I saw this movie last month.
I'm Justin.
I am. And I really like the sound as well. I have spoken at length about how I love a good synth. It doesn't work for everything. Like, I don't think synths would work in some horror contexts, but in something like this, I think it fits perfect. And the lights and the synth really kind of helped, I think, stretch that indie budget and make it really stand out. Now, I want to talk really quickly about the villains, the witches, as I should call them, because I think there's one other villain in this movie, but they're called the Three Mothers. They're basically a group of child-killing witches. How'd you guys feel about that as their lore and just generally their implementation throughout the movie?
I think you can get a long way on a little bit of information just in general, and especially when you set the tone right in a flick like this, and any horror movie really. And I think the costume design and just the simple fact that the vibes were immaculate really helped the witches, mothers, whatever, seem much more ominous than perhaps they would have been if it was captured on an IMAX red camera or some shit.
I liked the mothers quite a bit, and I wanted to do a little digging to see if there was like historical lore, like if it was based in reality or anything. And much to my surprise, I couldn't really find much. However, there is something called the Three Mothers trilogy.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
And it is a trilogy of
These
movies.
are different kind of films, Dan?
No. By the horror great Dario Argento.
Oh, shit!
Oh.
So speaking of Suspiria, Suspiria is the first of the trilogy.
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to guess the other
And-
two also have these villainous arch queen type figures or whatever that Suspiria kind of had.
From what I understand, yeah. I mean, I didn't see the other two movies, Inferno and Mother of Tears, but each one is
should
supposed to
review
be
those.
like about. We should. Each one is supposed to be about like one of the mothers. But I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't even make the connection until you mentioned it earlier, Justin. But all the colors, I don't know if that was a purposeful throwback to or a Easter egg to Dario Argento and Suspiria, or just
Right.
kind of happened that way. But yeah.
First off, I definitely think it was purposeful, the colors. But also, yeah, I really like the mothers. I mean, everyone on the podcast knows I'm big into MILFs. And I think
What?
just generally that, like Nico said, sometimes less is more, but it wasn't just that with the lore. It was also that with like what we would see sometimes. Like they were very sparingly used. And I think in this case, that was to the movie's advantage for sure. They did what they had to do. And again, like this movie was almost kind of like a course in how to use your budget to its most effective means, because they don't have the budget, I didn't think, to have like all these super spectacular special effects, but they didn't need to. I thought a lot of the just general gore and killing and stuff like that was good on its own. Like there was one particular scene where the father's date, she gets like scalped, and I thought that was brutal.
Yeah, that
I was like,
intense.
yo, they went in there. So I like that. And also, not that I think there's a specific piece of lore that they're drawing from as far as Three Mothers witches, but witches are generally notoriously child killers. And that's something that I think, you know, if we ever do watch The Vitch, you know, that happens in that movie. So I
What?
do think that's
No!
something.
Spoilers. Goddamn.
Not really.
Spoilers not for this movie, but for a completely unrelated movie.
Hey, it's in the synopsis.
Olaf dies in Frozen 2.
I consider the synopsis fair game. So, yeah. Now, I also want to ask, I mentioned, you know, there was another villain in the movie. Do you consider Kevin's dad to be a villain? Because he kind of says that he set
No, he's
everything
just
up.
quirky.
Okay. But he kind of set everything up so that Ronnie, at least, would get sacrificed to the witches.
Yeah, and honestly, fuck that kid, so he's cool with me.
Oh, wow. Okay, Dan, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a villain. He, like I said, he set it all up and wanted that to happen. He's also stupid. Think like
He was
all
real
that shit.
dumb.
I want to unleash these three witches, but my son won't get hurt. That's not possible. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I don't think he's like the villain, but I think he's a villain. Yeah.
And villainy takes many forms. So I want to ask real quick, tropes. I don't want to tropes through this field necessarily,
Drapes.
but you know, I try. And sometimes it just,
I tried so hard.
yeah. But no, so what kind of tropes do we see in this movie?
Well, we got the token black guy in the movie.
Yes, we do.
Sure
sure.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt kind of bad. I was like, damn, they really could have maybe given my guy more character, more behind him, but okay.
I don't know if this is a trope, but just the fact that Rod's girlfriend, I've already forgotten her name, just gets like auto-possessed. I feel like that happens all the goddamn time too.
Oh yeah, it totally does.
For sure. Reminds me of
Night of the Demons.
yes, thank you.
Yep, because that's exactly what I thought of too. Exactly what I thought of. The second I saw her, I was like, Night of the Demons.
Yep.
See, this is a good movie though, and Night of the Demons is a shit movie.
That's your opinion. I like Night of the Demons, for the record. So you're right, Dan. There was, I think, a little bit of stereotyping as far as that goes, although he didn't die first.
True.
Yeah, that's true. We also have the occult master, the one that you go to when you need to learn about the occult.
Yes, we
You know,
did.
Vincent plays that role.
Why has he gotta be a Redditor though?
No, okay, listen. He shows up at the house and he's like, no, she's like, Merry Christmas. And he goes, well, actually, did you know that there were other Saturnian religions and pretty much all the pagans did that before the advent of Jesus Christ? If he did exist, pushes up glasses. And I just want you to know. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Upon
oh my God,
first
Vincent.
meeting somebody.
You know what I thought was pretty funny though? And I thought the movie had subtle jabs. So you mentioned Rod, Dan, and literally, I don't know if the movie's trying to say something or not, but Kevin's dad instantly shoots and kills Rob. That's right, Rod, as soon as he sees him. And I was like, they're trying to say something here? Because I feel like they might be. And then also,
I hadn't considered that, but yeah, maybe.
Vincent was a pretty, and because that reminded me of Night of the Living Dead, the first one. But then, Vincent was actually a pretty chill dude once he like relaxed. Because he was like actually a good guy. He just needed to not be so like in his own head. Like he was smoking with Amber a little bit and then he got mad shit. I was like, oh yeah, witches exist. You know what I mean? Like you just got to use this counter spell I learned on the internet. Like, it's like, all right, calm down, bro.
I think my favorite Vincent part was like just before he died and he like volunteers to go into this like to the garage where nobody wants to go. And Amber's like, are you sure you want to go? And he looks around, he's like, well, do you want to go? No. Does anybody else want to go? No. All right then.
That's very true. That's very true. I'm not even going to front. Nico, I think there's a question here, and I often turn to you for this.
Okay.
There's a question here of maybe a piece of motherhood, because Kevin says, no, why are you laughing? Tell me why you audience
Why
is
do
laughing.
you come to me when it concerns motherhood?
Because you like the Babadook, Nico, and we're not going to get away from that. I don't give a fuck how many episodes it's been.
The movie is fantastic and you're a hater.
Nah, bro. Nah. But anyways, is Amber kind of fulfilling a motherhoodish role a little bit here? Specifically because Kevin says that his mother always saved him from the witches and told him not to look back. And then we get a scene where Amber does the exact same and tells him not to look back.
I feel like if we're saying that that is what qualifies as like checking the motherhood box, then it's kind of a shallow one, but sure, I guess. I didn't really think of her like that. I thought of her just as a young adult who happened to be there. Honestly, like, what was the fucking line at
And
the
rob
beginning?
the place.
And rob the place. Yeah, I mean, okay, so it's more than shut up. Anyway, what's the line from the dad that was really fucking like grooming-ish? Where it was like, "Hey, I was almost 21 once," or some shit like that. Well,
Yeah.
You think that is grooming-ish?
it was creepy.
No, I think he meant that as like like, it's okay, I won't snitch on you. Because he was like, you want a drink? And she was like, nah. And he was like, it's chill. At one point in time, I wasn't 21 either. And then, which I'm pretty sure she's lying about that too, by the way. But like,
Perhaps.
he was like, oh yeah, at one point in time, I was underage too. And she was like, oh, well, in that case, yeah, I will have a drink. So
I never
don't
realized
think,
you were young. I thought you just popped out like this.
Yeah, I think he was more so meaning that as like, oh, I'm a chill person that you can trust.
Okay.
Because I think he was just trying to like, because she was trying to con him, but he was also trying to con her.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fair. That's fair.
You won't Nightmare on Elm Street to me on this one, Nico. You most certainly will
Even
not.
I don't remember my hot take for that one.
Oh, you don't remember? That was the Nightmare on Elm Street where they decided to get really serious about grooming.
Sweaty.
Oh, no.
scenes.
Yeah, they did. Oh, yeah, that was bad.
Yeah.
That was real bad. Oh, man.
So, Dan,
Just
Kind of a wet dog here,
wow. What a transition.
but
Rough.
this is a Christmas
You do have
movie.
to groom wet dogs, don't you?
You do, and that's the transition we're going with.
All right.
Oh no.
But is this possibly the least Christmas movie to ever Christmas horror?
I think it's a tie between this and Black Christmas.
Oh no.
I
There's
think
a
Black
listener who won't
Christmas
like
is
that.
way more Christmassy than this.
Only a little bit. I wouldn't say way more. It was more. There were like actual carolers in that one. I
Yeah.
remember that.
But there was Christmas music in this one too.
Yeah, true. But this was like
Yeah.
recorded, not caroling.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one was probably the least Christmas. It just happened to be around Christmas time, and there was like
Yeah,
2 or 3 Christmas references.
I got you. Nico, is it possible for something to just take place around a holiday without being a movie associated with that holiday? And if so, what would be the directorial or maybe, the authorial intent to do something like that? Why would they reach into my loins that way?
I like to call it the die soft effect.
Well, I agree with you there. And for the record, the official DOTD stance is Die Hard is for sure a Christmas movie. Fuck everyone, including Nico, if you disagree.
No, absolutely it is.
There you go. There you go. That's what I tell busybodies when they ask me what my favorite Christmas movie is. Am I looking for the one with the Heatmeister? Don't get me wrong. That one was fire. But Die Hard, he was barefoot in that movie. Barefoot. I think we all need to remember that.
Yeah.
Had the dogs out, if you know what I mean.
The wet dogs.
The wet dogs at that, because they were kind of bloody.
Oh.
That Castlevania song, Bloody Tears, is more like Bloody Feet. So
Ow.
now that we've all taken some time to think about that, Nico, I want to ask you one kind of last question here, but did you have a favorite scene in this movie?
I think it was probably the scene when the dad comes back and he just gets this massive shit-eating grin like he's happy that this is all going on because he's a fuck, and it just I don't know, it was almost like the zenith of the dumb shit-ometer that was going on in the movie IMO.
Okay. Dan, how's about you?
I don't think there was a scene that like jumped out at me. I've been trying to think the last couple of minutes, but that's not to say that scenes were bad. Like, I think they were all good. I mean, if I had to pick one, I would say maybe the near the end sequence where we really start seeing them fight like the witches.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty cool. But I think a lot of it was pretty good, pretty cool.
I think they needed the Force. I mean, they needed Luke for sure because the witches were out here using the Force. So I'm assuming they probably needed like Luke or someone to come through and help them out.
Yeah, maybe I wouldn't call Ed and Lorraine Lauren. Maybe I'd call Luke Skywalker instead.
Yo, maybe.
Fun.
Maybe.
Possibility.
But I will say my favorite scene in this one was probably where Marvin. First off, can I just say, like, I feel like Marvin just needs to leave
yeah.
because he's the most unwanted character
I
I've never
hate
seen.
characters like Marvin.
He's the most unwanted. I know Nico really hates young men that have low self-esteem, but I do think that, when he was like, there's a scene at the pool where one of the witches pretends to be Amber and starts like making out with him, and then it transitions into being like a witch. And I was like, oh, I love those kinds of scenes, bro. Cause like, who doesn't like, oh, you're making out with like a boring plain earth chick, and all of a sudden turns into like a witch. That's so much more hot.
I don't think he knew that she turned into a witch until she was killing him.
What's it really matter? No, she didn't kill him in that scene.
Oh.
Yeah. He didn't die till after. Because remember, she was making out with him at the pool, and then he ran inside. They all met up. Then they went
right.
out to the garage, and he came
right,
back from
that's
that
right,
too.
that's
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Cut
So-
this.
No, don't cut this. I'm into witches. If you into that, hit me up at Nico's house. So now, I also want to bring up a what would you do scenario, right? And I have to make it plain here. So, Nico, If you had to pick one of either me or Dan to protect you from a witch, who's it going to be?
You know, in judging on past experiences that I've had with the both of you, the trials and the tribulations, the ups and the downs, the ins and the outs, the Scyllas and the Charybdises, I think I gotta go with Dan.
The latex and the lamb. Oh, what? What?
Because I don't say shit like that. That's why.
100%!
Okay. Y'all mad because I'm creative. That's what they told me. So, okay, Nico, why would you pick Dan? How would Dan be a good night sitter?
Like that.
How would Dan be a good night sitter for you to protect you against ghosts and rapscallions?
I mean, Dan would be over here with the classic, yo, you ever heard of Ben Moody? Let's watch some Evanescence tracks from back in the day, get you hype on 2004 again. And that's just like an easy attention switch for Nico. You got it. I'm done.
That's facts. You got to fight the witches with the goths.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very true. I will say as well, at time of recording, the 20th anniversary of Fallen has not come out yet, but they did drop what's the track? My Immortal. And the remastered version, It sounds very crisp. It sounds very crisp.
Yep, sure does.
All right, then. Dan, if you got to pick between Justin, the mystical warrior, and Nico, the night shitter, who are you going to pick to defend you as your babysitter, so to speak, against witches? Who would you choose?
Yo, I'll shit on all your enemies, Dan. I'll fucking do it.
I know you will. That's what scares me. I think I'm going to have to go with Jess on this one. Because we used to live in a haunted apartment.
That's true.
And this man would lay out salt and like do some like voodoo witchcraftery to keep that shit at bay. And I'm still alive. So it worked.
Fair enough. And for me, if I'm going up
something false positive. But
listen,
okay.
If it's between, Night Shitter Nico and Diesel Dan, I feel like I gotta go with Diesel Dan on this one, only because you remember in Final Fantasy Tactics how if you don't there's some units that are like atheists or something and they can't get hit by like certain kinds of attacks. You remember this?
Yeah, I do.
What?
See, the way that ghostery kind of works is if you afraid, they get more powerful, right? But Dan is not a man with afraid. So that's how I personally like Nico. Nico is a man with afraid. So
Afraid nuts.
you need extra people to back up Nico. But if it's just you and Dan, Dan not going to be afraid. So you're going to be afraid? No, you can't be afraid because Dan's not afraid. So that's how it works out. And plus, in that house, Dan be like, fuck it, bro. We're about to play Rocket League or X-Men Legends or some shit and ride this one out. So yeah, that's exactly what we did. And I got to pick Dan. So listeners, we'd like to know who you would pick, whether it's Just the Hero, Diesel Dan, or IBS Nico. We'll find out later. But for right now, I want to go ahead and take it to the critic review. This is a pretty bass podcast. I don't know why. Not bass like my home bass, or your bass or belong to us, or bass the instrument. Or apparently, I didn't know this, but Ace of Base were secretly Nazis the whole time.
Yeah, fucking right. What the fuck is this?
Yeah, that one threw me for a fucking loop. I was like, hey, what?
Look that shit up. I'm not
Look
kidding.
that shit
This
up.
is not a bit.
Sorry. None of those bass. I mean bass bass emotions. Anyways, critic review time. What do you guys think critics gave this one on Rotten Tomatoes?
I feel like they gave it a straight 50.
Woo!
I'm going to be a little bit more generous. Let's say time code 78. What?
This got a 78 on Rotten Tomatoes from the
Let's
critics.
fucking go! Let's go!
It's pretty based.
Another use of the word base that is different.
TYBG.
Yes, TYBG, a phrase that was very relevant during our college years, wherein people would praise the based god for accomplishments. So yes.
Including but not limited to fucking your bitch.
I was trying to avoid this. Anyways, so yeah, that's right. And we all used to go to parties and cook, but not like food, but imaginary dance moves where we had pots and pans. Moving on past that, I thought I was a shit.
Four Locos were real fucking bad back then. Shits will end your life.
They could end your life.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's got a 58% from the fans on Rotten Tomatoes, so they were less generous and more in line with what Dan thought, and it is not occult magic to determine the numbers. But I really want to know what you guys think. Where does this movie sit for you?
You know, I'm just going to continue to ride this high, and I'm going to say 78. It was a really fun movie that I had a great time with. There wasn't a whole lot to really dig deep in terms of thematic or narrative analysis or any sort of like metatextual commentary. It was just a fun movie. And even though I was a little bit surprised at the lack of holiday cheer in this one, I still had a pretty damn good time with it.
Fair play. Dan, how about you?
I'm going to give this one an 85. I thought it was a fantastic movie. I really liked it. There was one thing is it's quite similar to a different movie called The Babysitter.
It is.
And while I was watching this movie at the start, and kind of as it went on a little bit in the beginning quarter or third, I was kind of like, oh man, I don't want this to be like a rip off of that or anything.
Right.
But as the movie went, it was still fairly similar, but I was like, this is just a great fucking movie.
Yeah.
So like, well done. The acting was actually kind of good. The colors, the sound, like the plot, it was fun. I'm going to give it an 85. It was a great time.
I like this movie a lot. I am going to give it an 83 from me. But there is one note I want to make, which is don't get confused. Just because this movie has a really lighthearted tone, I don't think it's something for like really young viewers. I think sometimes because the movie sometimes gives vibes of more wholesome movies a little bit. And there's a certain genre of horror that's meant for like, you know, either people who aren't super into like really scary moments or maybe for younger viewers where they're more just like horror spirited and horror themed rather than like scare the shit out of you.
Scary.
And I don't think this is a ooh scary kind of movie, but I will say that, you know, like I just don't want anyone to like, oh, like little Timmy, let's watch The Night Sitter because it's about a babysitter, and they don't realize that it's like,
instead.
yo, definitely not that. And all of a sudden, just like, you know what I mean? Like titty pop out, people getting their necks snapped, people getting scalped. Like,
I mean, and Pettigore was about like puppets. So that's a
much more chill,
right?
childlike, childish, whatever. That movie was not childish, man. Go watch Pettigore.
Yo, yeah, do that. And then listen to our review where we all have to like recover from it. So there's certainly that. But yeah, I mean, just watch out for that. This is not a movie for little kids is what I'm saying. But that being said,
Justin,
I personally am a big fan of it.
We have never brought that up nary a single time in the history of our podcast. What movie that we have reviewed would you say is the most suited for children?
Paranorman.
Okay.
True.
Okay.
Scooby-Doo.
Yo, didn't Fred literally fucking like end a
Velma?
man's life in that one?
Oh, he did.
Yo, let's not detract from the fact that the end of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island was Velma setting up to get laid. He's like, I'm actually a detective. I love a good detective book. Velma, I see you, girl. You're thirsty out here in Louisiana. I got you, but still. So I think it's time for us to just lay it all out on the table. Do we recommend this movie to our listeners?
Yeah, go watch it.
Yeah, I think it's a great time. Is this eligible for the Golden Seal?
Nah.
How about a diamond in the rough?
Yes.
I would do a diamond in the rough. Hell yeah.
I would do a diamond in the rough. Hang on.
As-
That's the diamond in the rough sound now. And this is a diamond in the rough. So yeah, we think that this is a movie with flaws, maybe not the biggest budget, but it shines nonetheless. It is certainly worth your time, especially for an independent effort. Go watch it. If you want to communicate with us about whether or not you'd like to bring us on to protect you from ghosts, supernatural causes, or witches, by the way, DOTD does not endorse, sponsor, or bodyguard against those types of things. If you want to, hit us up. We're on Twitter, which is X, and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. That's Don't Open That Door. Plus, you can check out everything we've done on our website, which is dotdhorror.com. But till then, dear listener, take care of yourselves.
Tell a friend about us, and tell us things too. But also tell your friends about us. Rate and review our stuff, please.
Die Hard's a Christmas movie. And as always, dear listener, don't open
Pick
that
up
door.
yourself.
That too. Bye.